The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Blake Anderson, cryptographic economist.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show.
Josh Gigala from Vaultoro.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good night.
JW Weatherman from mathbot.com.
Hey, ladies. Thanks for having me.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1. Bitcoin price bottoms. On July 17th, the price of Bitcoin spiked more than 10% in around 45 minutes, settling in at around 7,479. This led Barry Silbert of Digital Currency Group to claim that the downtrend is over and that the bottom has been found. Silbert claims that a combination of impatient institutional money, bears running out of Bitcoin to sell, and technical analysis led him to his decision. Additionally, Bitcoin is no longer reacting to negative criticism by famous faces from the world of economics. Blake Anderson, I ask you, has Bitcoin truly bottomed?
Well, these types of predictions are really hard to make because Bitcoin is an emerging market. It's not hyper massive in terms of being unable to be swayed by certain big hodlers. I think it's funny in this article on June 16th, BlackRock said that there was zero institutional investment interest, and then on July 16th, and then on July 18th, Grayscale said that 56% of a 250 million raise round came from institutional investors. So it's very interesting to look at these kind of pivots and or flip-flops. I can't decide if this flip-flop/pivot is somebody flip-flopping or if they're trying to be consistent in what they're saying, even though what they said previously may not have aligned with what they're saying now. So is it at the bottom? I don't know, but over a long time horizon, it should continually trend up. So I think that we should look forward to that as opposed to trying to read the tea leaves on a short-term basis, because that can get people wrecked.
Just like to ask everyone to give us a thumbs up and a share so that more people can find the show. Josh Gigala.
Yeah, I mean, it's I really feel that we could start seeing an upward trend. It was a weird pop of this bubble. It wasn't like a direct Mt. Gox style pop or the pops before them, where it literally went down, straight vertical. It's kind of deflated over the last 4 months, which, people in the normal world will go, what? It fully popped. But actually in the Bitcoin world, it deflated. And I don't know, have we seen the bottom? I think we'll see a sideways trend for a long time still, because what will happen is even if it goes up, we'll get people going, whoa, I'm not going to miss out on these gains again, and they'll pull out. And it's sad because they're using Bitcoin to pull out into filthy fiat again, and just stay in there, guys.
For me, it was a really big deal when we finally broke 6,800. We've been trying to get over that for a long time. And that was a big signal of a potential turnaround. We could be a retracement, but I don't know.
There was a CNBC poll that said, is it going to go above 7K? And everybody voted no. So I thought that was pretty funny to be able to post now.
That's always good whenever they say that. Remember, they said to buy Ripple at $3 a coin. So, JW Weatherman.
I think it's good to take a step back and think about what the price means, right? The price is not like this thing that has momentum or velocity or anything like that. It's a line that represents the past decisions that people made about buying and selling Bitcoin, right? And they bought and sold at different ratios and in different volumes, but they didn't do it for any other reason than to benefit themselves, right? And so why would they buy or sell? Well, if they're smart, they're buying or selling because they think it's going to go up in the future. How are we going to predict what they're going to do over the next 3 months when we don't even know why they did that over the last 3 months, right? I don't even know if you really put the screws to me, like why I bought the color of shoes that I bought, let alone a lot of this other stuff that's far harder to really support and articulate. Big picture, though, I can tell you what I do know. What I do know is that it's a new technology. It works better than all of the competitors. The competitors suck. There's nothing that looks even anything less than full on stupid. And it's a huge problem that it's going to solve. And if it does solve that problem, it'll be worth 5 million plus. those are all facts that I can articulate. It's my investment thesis. That's why I'm very happy that I bought it at 18,000 and we're sitting around 7,000, because my investment thesis remains completely untouched by everything that happens in the near term. I'm a technologist. I see tools that work, I buy them, and I don't expect the whole world to adopt those tools in 6 or 9 months. I know that this is a 5+ year game.
Excellent points, Mr. Weatherman. And as you know, the coin has no memory. In the play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, they flipped a coin 50 times in a row, and 50 times it came up heads. And you say to yourself, gosh, what are the odds of it coming up heads the next time, given that it's come up 50 times in a row? And the answer is still the same, 50-50. 50-50. Let's move on to the exit question. What is the price of Bitcoin this time next week? Higher or lower? Blake Anderson.
Well, that's a good question. I think that Barry Silbert is great, but I think that when Barry and Alan Silbert both agree on certain things, those are really, really strong points of information. And I think that the institutional investment money is something that they agree on that's coming in, so that's a strong data point. As far as next week, will it be higher or lower? I think that it could creep higher. We've just come out of a pretty long lateral consolidation, so it would make sense if it were a little bit higher. But again, with the coin flip, 50-50.
It's funny, all the Bitcoin brothers we have in this industry, Alan and Barry Silbert, and of course, Charlie Lee and Bobby Lee. Congratulations to Bobby Lee. He went all the way to, I think it was day 4 of the World Series of Poker. Very cool. Congratulations, Bobby. Josh Gagala. I'm saying your name wrong today.
Yeah, and it's me and my brother as well, running Voltoro. So, hey, yeah, I mean, I would say there's a very big difference between price and value. And the price next week, I think, might be a little bit lower because we've seen an overbuying on a technical basis. There's been a lot of buying. So I think the price will be lower, but the value will be higher.
JW Weatherman.
I'm going to say higher. And I'm going to say higher because of the fact that it started at 0 and it's headed to 5 million. So on average, I've got to be right slightly more often if I say it's going to go up, unless I've completely misunderstood the technology or what people are going to do with it.
And let's stick with higher, 8,200, easy. Moving on to issue 2, Congressional Bitcoin. In a pair of hearings this week, the Agriculture Committee and the Financial Services Committee met to discuss Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The highlights include the girl with the purple hair declaring forcefully that Satoshi is indeed a woman, and Congressman Brad Sherman, the banking representative from California, declaring that we should prohibit U.S. persons from buying or mining cryptocurrencies, adding that cryptocurrencies accomplish nothing except facilitating narcotics trafficking, terrorism, and tax evasion. Josh Kigala, is Mr. Sherman correct? Should Bitcoin be banned?
I mean, the thing is, this guy is so ludicrously stupid. I mean, honestly, should my left back wheel shock absorber go out there and get a bank account so it can sell its little minuscule bits of data that it's going to sell to the rest? You know, should everything on the Internet of Things go out there and get a bank account? No. I mean, it needs money for this stuff to work. This guy's living in the past. What is he, a Mormon? I'm not sure, but really, I think it's a really ridiculously. Hang on, is it Mormon? Who are the guys that?
I think and moron.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange to me to hear these sort of these politicians who, I think I saw a little bit covered on him that he actually got a large contribution to his campaign out of crypto anyway. But really, the notion that everything's money laundering and all this nonsense is so ludicrous in terms of the potential and the times that we're living in. We've used a 1950s technology called the credit card, debit card system, or the credit card system, and mangled it and mashed it and crushed it into this hole to try and make it work for the internet. Dude, every time you use your credit card, you're handing over someone your private keys, some random person your private keys, basically. Because you have to give them everything they need to do to take it, apart from that little number in the back. I mean, is that a joke? Yeah, I could imagine the boardroom meeting when they came up with that. They'd be like, oh, guys, we're getting a lot of scams, a lot of people stealing credit cards. What can we do? And the one person would go, I've got an idea. We shall turn the card around and add 3 more numbers on the back. I mean, what kind of a ludicrous world do we live in where these politicians think that we can live with this sort of technology? You can't stick the rabbit back in the hat. And if he's going to ban every American, I would be furious as an American to say, what are you doing, mate? Are you seriously going to ban the future of money or the future of digital assets in this entire country? What are you retarded? Like, I mean, that's really.
I prefer the term subtarded, because it's insulting to retarded people to compare.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. As soon as it came out, I thought, no, that's really is insulting to.
And they are saying in the chat, Josh might have meant Luddite, people that are against technology, or maybe Amish. Not exactly
Amish. That's what I meant. I'm sorry, I meant the Amish, of course. Yeah, and nothing to do against the Amish. Actually, I like the fact that they choose not to use technology. Cool, but dude,
they shouldn't be in Congress deciding for the rest of us.
No,
just to throw some cover. Let's. I'll make fun of the Mormons and their special underpants for a minute, and that way, if there was any misdirected outrage, it'll be where it is welcome. No, I think all this Congress stuff is funny because these guys are. They're not the sharpest knives in the drawer. They don't know what's going on. They're not technologists. I mean, if you ever get bored and you need some laughs, go back and look at the congressional hearings they had around the internet, on any topic around the internet. You're going to hear some of the most absurd statements, and these guys will say it with a straight face, with absolute confidence and bluster. But that's what they do. They're politicians, right? So they're professional liars, and their job is to try to convince you of falsehoods so that you allow them to take your money with less resistance. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they would like to get rid of Bitcoin, but I don't think that any of them have taken more than 10 minutes before they got in the front of the camera to understand what Bitcoin is or why it would be hard to do anything to it. So I'm not really worried about those guys. If they did do something like try to ban Bitcoin, it would have some positive side effects that might not be very obvious. And one of them is that all of the people that have a tendency to grovel and submit and lick the boot of the state would end up becoming impoverished as a percentage compared to the people that are willing to take some risks and in reasonable ways fight for freedom. So bring it on if that's what you jokers are going to do. But I don't even think that you've put 15 minutes into it. So I doubt you're doing anything.
It was funny, JW, to see how totally unprepared the congressmen were for this hearing. It's almost as though they attempted to learn merely from the hearing, not from doing any pre-research. It reminded me back in college, some people would do the research and read the books and prepare, and other people would just come in and try to, learn from the class and sneak by. And that'll get by in college, but not in Congress, right?
Yeah, totally. You would think, but I'm not so sure. I think no matter how dumb we think the average congressperson is, we're overestimating them.
Oh, I saw it, and I was like, I could do that. I could do that better. So interesting stuff. Let's move on to the exit question.
Oh, hold on. I still got to weigh in.
Oh, you do. Oh, yeah. We got to go to Blake. Go ahead, Blake. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, Brad Sherman, I think that we've kind of kicked that horse. He set the bar really, really, really low. Colin Peterson of the Democratic Farm and Labor in Minnesota, it was an agriculture hearing, so he's in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota. It's in the Farm Belt. And I was actually impressed that he did a little bit of research on his own and said that not 80% of ICOs are scams. Seemed like he was a little bit more warm on Bitcoin than some of the other stuff that surrounds it and tried to make a little bit of a differentiation. The DFL isn't the worst party ever. I'm definitely a classical liberal, but Paul Wellstone and the tradition of people coming out of the DFL from Minnesota, him being so controversial in terms of trying to get stuff done that he died in a plane crash, and people wonder what happened there. And I don't know, the bar was set so low by Brad that I was almost kind of impressed with Colin, which is bizarre because, again, leading towards libertarianism, I'm not all about this representative policy handling here with people that are so far away from the situation. So was an interesting hearing. It was interesting to say, to hear people, insist that Satoshi was female without a lot of evidence. Like, I don't insist that Satoshi was male, and for those same reasons, I think that insisting that she female or a space alien or anything is just kind of a bizarre thing to talk about on the floor, to the extent that people started thereafter referring to Satoshi as female. It was just kind of a very, very circus-esque in terms of let's remain a little bit more empirical and a little bit less, making assumptions that make us feel good and then going out and getting a lot of attention doing that. So I thought it was a very, very interesting, bread and circus that might be a little bit more advanced than football bread and circus and stuff like that, but at least that has competitive value. I struggled to see the value coming out of those hearings.
It was a very unimpressive hearing. It was sad to see Paul Wellstone pass in the plane crash. It kind of reminds you of Bobby Kennedy, of what could have been somebody just getting started trying to make some change. Let's move on to the exit question. Exit question: if Congress wanted to ban Bitcoin, would they be successful? Josh.
No.
JW Weatherman.
They would be successful at impoverishing people that listen to them, but not at their goal.
Blake Anderson.
It's pretty tough to ban something that has a network effect that's global. So, I mean, it's like, what was it, Michelle Bachmann, that was like, we're going to scrub pornography from the internet. It's like, well, even if you were able to make a dent in that, we all have bodies and cameras that can upload new information. It seems like a pretty foolish goal. So I think I would put it on a par with the foolishness of something like that.
It can't be done. Just look at China. China has banned Bitcoin, yet they're still trading it. They're still learning about it. It's still spreading. Bitcoin is the ultimate computer virus. Did you know the World Crypto Network has its own audio podcast? And it's got more than just the World Crypto Network YouTube on there. It's got Andy Hoffman, Adam Meister, JW Weatherman, and much, much more. Please subscribe to the World Crypto Network podcast on iTunes today. Issue 3, BlackRock. The American global investment company BlackRock took a good look at Bitcoin this week. The group, with more than $6.3 trillion in assets under management and 70 offices in 30 countries, formed a working group to examine the fledgling cryptocurrency, perhaps causing the Bitcoin price to spike. Previously, the CEO rallied against Bitcoin, calling it an index of money laundering. But now he seems to have changed his tune. JW Weatherman, is BlackRock's entry into the Bitcoin market good for Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. Adoption is good for Bitcoin. And it doesn't matter whether their motives are good or bad. I'm sure that they're probably not, they're not thinking about the children when they're making their investment decisions. But that's the great thing about Bitcoin, is that it is the right thing to do for the most corrupt, evil, greasy politician, whatever. If there is an evil guy pulling all the strings behind Illuminati or something, that guy right now needs to turn on all of the people he's aligned with and buy the hell out of Bitcoin, and then eventually say nice things about it. So I think it's absolutely a good thing if they adopt it. If they don't, I think it's a good thing that they're talking about it, because a lot of these guys that have a lot of money made their money doing things that don't require that they really know what's happening with technology, at least in the present time. And so as they're talking about it, as they're more aware of it, they're certainly going to have more of a tendency to buy it. And I think that the trend is just going to continue, because it's really just an education game at this point, and we're making really good progress on that.
It's an excellent point, JW. No matter what happens with Bitcoin, because of its shadowy creation and the mysterious inventor, it's very much non-government and non-corporation. So whoever you think's running things, Illuminati, central bankers, normal bankers, eventually one of them in their group is going to betray all the other ones and go to Bitcoin, causing the other ones to follow like dominoes. And they just can't be trusted, and they can't trust each other. So they're eventually going to fail, and Bitcoin's going to help. Blake Anderson.
I think it's funny that Fink called it the index of money laundering. Whenever I hear Fink, I think of Rat Fink. When I was younger in the early 90s, there was all this cool Rat Fink stuff and the, 8-ball shifters and stuff. And it's interesting. I kind of touched on this in the first topic in terms of BlackRock saying there's zero institutional investment interest, and now they're kind of flip-flopping, changing their tune. And then it's like, cui bono, who benefits? How do people benefit from this type of a flip-flop? Is it ideological and consistency and honesty? Did they say something wrong before, and now they're going to say something else that's correct, even though they were wrong before, but they don't care because it's, it's part of being honest? I wish that were the case, but I don't really think so. I think it's more likely that they maybe did get some interest from either their investors or some of their managers. They thought that they had enough sway and influence to say something negative and push the price down, creating an opportunity for people to buy lower because they did want some exposure. I think from the who benefits, cui bono type of framing of things, that makes a lot more sense than they're just trying to be super honest, even though they just said something that was the opposite not that long ago. So it's interesting to think of motivations in terms of who benefits instead of trying to think from some other type of angle. It's one of the oldest questions that we have in terms of trying to solve crime or trying to place intent. So I think it's always important to ask cui bono, who benefits.
And also follow the money and I am the walrus. Josh Segala.
Jamie Dimon isn't an idiot. When he came out with FUD or just bad mouthing Bitcoin, I just knew, right, he's stacking. When BlackRock came out and started fudding it, and really he came out with Finn came out with the same crap, same nonsense that's rolled out all the time. Yeah, well, blockchain's really interesting. I think blockchain's fascinating, but Bitcoin, no, I really find it I don't think it has a big future. And you just think, what are you talking? How many times a day do you really need an immutable database, dude? And also, how many times a day do you reach into your pocket and pull out this thing called currency? I'm pretty sure it's far more than you need an immutable database. But even if you do think that that blockchain is better, really, honestly, it's kind of like saying that poker's really interesting, but playing cards are stupid. It's so dumb because they need both things. In the future, we'll see every company have some sort of, tokenization is here. You can have digital assets that have things. You can do things with it. It's an amazing technology. It's not going away. The token is not stupid, and these guys aren't stupid. They're going to be buying. It's a no-brainer. And Bitcoin is the biggest, most steady, the ridiculous amount of hash power. And I think people forget about how powerful Bitcoin is, the network. I think someone calculated it, I think it was even a year ago or a year and a half ago, that if Google turned on in the entire hardware spectrum that they've got and pointed it all at the Bitcoin network, it wouldn't even add 1% hashing power. And that's how big this beast has become. So of course, this is one of the biggest companies that nobody's heard of. And of course they're going to go in and jump in on this, of course.
They're definitely getting in. Institutional money is on its way. Moving on to the exit question. What will happen with BlackRock's working group?
Did we hit Weatherman?
Yeah, he was first.
Oh, my bad.
Will they suggest to accept Bitcoin within 6 weeks, 6 months, or never? JW Weatherman.
I'm feeling like 2 years. That's kind of, and it's just a gut feel. I don't have a lot to support it. It's just, I know that technology takes time. And even, I remember when the first iPhone came out, and I was more pissed off than I was relieved, because it was like, did I really have to wait 7 years for somebody to build a touch screen that actually has enough fidelity to where I can use my finger and not this stupid stylus that I've been carrying around, trying to click on the Windows freaking start menu with a phone, right? It takes a painfully long time, and anybody that's been in technology for a long time knows that it's this weird dichotomy between seeing the future and then just painfully waiting for it to be adopted by everybody else. But that's where the opportunity is. And yeah, I'm going to say a couple years.
Word on the street is BlackRock's buying now. Blake Anderson?
I think that it's a good question. What I think is that given their very, very recent history of kind of doing things which seem to be advantageous for them more than other people, I think that they're going to tell their institutional investors privately, accumulate, buy, and then the next time we see a big bull run, they're going to say, hey, not only are we in support of this, we've been telling people about it, and now we're going to take credit during this bull run, and previously we were telling people to accumulate. And so I think that it's going to be about 6 or 7 months until that happens. So I think that the 6-month guesstimate is probably right on, because I think we're going to have a couple of upswings, and when we get a really visceral one, I think they'll say, hey, we've actually been advising this for a while, not publicly but privately.
Josh Sigala, 2 years, 6 months, break the tie?
So do you mean they accept it as an investment, custodial investment
Sure,
program?
pretty much like everyone else, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Bitcoin, crypto in general, is extremely slippery. It's something that takes a lot of very specialized people and a very small group, because the bigger the group is, the more easily an inside job can hack the thing. So it's it's a giant corporation. It's faceless. It would be hard for them, I think, unless they had a crack team of specialists, but which of course they could muster. But yeah, maybe I don't know. I think maybe they'll buy Coinbase or something like that. But could be two. Yeah, I think JW is right. Maybe 2 years.
The answer is 6 months, far sooner than you think. Moving on to issue 4, KodakCoin. For reasons unknown, Forbes magazine believes that the company that purchased the Kodak brand, not Kodak the camera company, similar to the way that Polaroid has also been sold as a brand. Irregardless, the company behind Kodak's mining scheme and has been labeled a scam by critics and blocked by the SEC. Their ICO is now on plans, and their goals to have a network allowing people to license their photographs has been put on hold. But the real question remains, why did Forbes believe that KodakCoin ever mattered, and that its death and decline would have any effect on Bitcoin? Blake Anderson.
That's a good question. Forbes really kind of talked out of both sides of their mouth on this one, because early on they were like, yay, we're going to basically just publish their press release. And then later on they were like, this is pretty bad for the Bitcoin community. You need some more regulation. And I think it was Janine that was on Twitter and was posting. Saifedean said this was a bad idea a long time ago. You guys are being kind of hypocritical, trying to call other people out when it was your same publication previously that was talking about how this was going to be good and didn't really temper it with any type of risk. And it's interesting that Kodak thinks that they have the wherewithal to be able to vet these operations when they've used like horse glue to attach silver salts to film that doesn't really set you up for, taking the reins of cutting edge financial technology. And especially if you look at the history of the mining space, people like Dr. Timo Hankey and Ravi Iyengar. Ravi used to work for Samsung as a chip architect, and before that worked at Qualcomm as a chip architect that made massive, massive strides in the fundamental technologies of being able to add huge improvements before tape out for new stuff coming. So it kind of just makes me wonder how far down the ladder of the Dunning-Kruger effect you can be to think that you are going to be confident and able to compete in this area. I think that they said that they were going to rent these for $3,400 or $3,500 for X amount of time, and that you should make $300+ per month. And somebody did the math and said that Bitcoin would have to be at $28,000 over the next 2 years to be able to do that. I don't think that's impossible, but I think that if you're trying to make those guarantees or even referencing those numbers when nobody knows if Bitcoin is going to go up or down or around in circles, it doesn't bode well. And so I can understand why the SEC was like, whoa, pump the brakes on this. It looks like what you're promising is very, very, very open to all kinds of factors that can influence it in one way or the other. So I think that the Bitcoin community did an actual better job of self-regulating and talking about, don't buy into this, it's a scam, than Forbes did. So I thought it was funny that Forbes kind of came out later on and was like, this is bad for Bitcoin. I think maybe it was more bad for Forbes, and there was a little bit of projection there.
Josh Kigala, the question goes to you. Was Forbes ignorant or intentionally ignorant?
Wow, yeah. I mean, every time I've been quoted throughout my life by any sort of press, it's always been completely wrong. Like it's so I don't give the mainstream media too much, hope. But the Kodak thing has always been hilarious. It was kind of at first glance, it was like, whoa, cool, Kodak, go Kodak, trying to make a comeback. But then you realize, hang on a minute, these chip manufacturers are getting down to 7 nanometers now. What? Some company that buys up the random bits of scrap from Kodak, what have they got any idea? No. And of course, it failed, and it was, I mean, really, when you think about it, it was kind of nearly as stupid as the first most stupid idea in crypto, and that's a mining light bulb. Bitfury wanted to release, or something like that. Someone wanted to release a mining. I mean, mining. The biggest part of mining is heat problems, guys. You don't want a light bulb doing it. Anyway, yeah.
That was great when they brought the light bulb forward in a special briefcase at Richard Branson's fancy island. I wasn't there, but I watched videos and such, and they opened the briefcase. This light bulb will mine Bitcoin.
So dumb.
So dumb.
So dumb.
Never made it to consumers. I'm still waiting. Let's go to JW Weatherman. Are you excited about KodakCoin? Is it a major disappointment you're not going to be able to get your hands on any?
Yeah, I'm super disappointed. Actually, this story is one of those things. It's like a Russian doll. Like you could just keep taking layers off of it, and it's just one layer of stupid after another. So Kodak, the company, doesn't even exist anymore. Kodak has been bankrupt for a long time. They missed the boat. They weren't a well-managed company. They thought that digital cameras were not going to be a threat. They're the Betamax tapes of the past, right? They don't exist. But the brand lives on because we all have associations with it. So the brand gets licensed, and as the brand becomes less valuable, it gets licensed for less and less to shadier and shadier companies. And it's just the normal sort of the death rattle of any company, right? It's going away, but we still recognize the name, so it's got something in there. So the guys that put this together are not even Kodak, which just makes it even more apparent how stupid Forbes is. Like this was a non-story under a non-story. And the thing that I think of with Forbes is just like, I don't know who the author is, but I can almost guarantee you he rode his little scooter bike to a coffee shop. He just left his smelly little apartment. He cranked out 15 minutes of work, and then he went back to his Xbox. And that's what Forbes is, right? And then some editor was like, I wonder how many clicks this is going to get. And the answer was more than that stupid story we did yesterday. So publish. And if that's where you're getting all your investment advice, you got to expect stuff like this. But I do like the Kodak story just because it so highlights how low quality the publication is.
Excellent points, JW. Let's move
Don't
on
pull
to
any
the
punches.
no way. Exit question: will the mainstream media learn from their incredible foolishness over KodakCoin? Or will this happen again and again and again? Blake Anderson.
They seemed pretty defensive at the corrections and having anybody imply that they had any responsibility to have said anything except for just basically publishing a press release and then adding some glittery language to it. So I don't think they've learned a goddamn thing if I have to put my subjective opinion forward, but hopefully they have.
Gosh,
yeah.
Gosh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, of course they haven't learned anything. It's Long Island iced tea, blockchain iced tea. They put the word blockchain in their company name because it skyrockets the share price. In fact, when we got investment from the floating company, their stock price also went up. So anything to do with blockchain at the moment, it's causing hype. So, and that goes the same for press. As soon as they write a puff piece that with no research, I mean, obvious no research, exactly what JW said, it's it's going to get some clicks. So I think they're just going to do it over and over again. It's typical. I mean, the mainstream media, you really got to feel sorry for them in this day and age. They really have to write ridiculous articles, clickbait articles, to get anything, and they're going to basically steer people astray because they're not going to do with the research. And it's a terrible thing because journalism is so incredibly important. But I think we're seeing a new era of journalism where the amount of weight that people put on the importance of these big publications has been diminishing for a long time. And people's filter on fake news and understanding what fake news, I think, is getting, I mean, maybe I'm being delusional, but I think it's getting better because they're understanding how to research stuff a lot more. So if they hear a story straight out, they'll go and check multiple sources. And you know, the old saying goes, the fastest way to get a correct answer on the internet is to blatantly say something wrong, and you'll get corrected straight away. So, of course, I think, yeah, that would be.
So based on what you said, would you agree that it's almost a race to the bottom in the age of information, the scarce resources, attention? They're churning through all this stuff to try to get attention, and people can kind of start to see this race to the bottom, and people are becoming more and more wary of what they hear from these sources?
Yeah, and I think definitely, but I feel that really what we're in now, we're in an age where reputation does count for something, but if you screw that reputation up by messing with people, it's very easy to determine if that was a lie or something like that, and reputation is extremely hard to get back. And in the past, a big newspaper publication had no barrier had a big barrier of entry for competition. So if they could just lie straight out, and it didn't matter because you couldn't just get another newspaper competing with you. Nowadays, hey, you're going to lie? Well, I'm just going to not click on your stupid homepage anymore.
I think the hallmark is comment sections being disabled for a publication.
Just have to put it down the memory hole. JW Weatherman, will the media learn from their mistakes?
I think the media is getting replaced. I think they're obsolete. And what we're doing right now is far more valuable than anything you're going to see on mainstream media. I mean, you've got together a couple people, a group of guys that have started businesses, that are working in the industry, that have actually contributed and know vaguely what we're talking about to sort of analyze what's going on in the world. They never do that, right? Like this level, this quality of content is so far above anything that you're seeing out there. Even with all of my, bellicose statements for entertainment, the amount of content, like the amount of actual bullet points that you could grab out of this episode and say, this is a clear, articulated statement about how the world works, would be probably 100 times more than anything that you're going to get on 30 minutes of mainstream media. So I think they're going the way of the long distance cell phone carrier or the long distance phone call carriers. And we won't have to worry about them in probably a year or two, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe they've got 6 years before they're absolutely gone. But the trend is definitely in the right direction, and they're going away rapidly. So who cares?
Can I just weigh in on what you said really quick? Because I think that what you said is very interesting. You said you can glean out statements about reality that are true from this episode. And it's very interesting. That overlaps a lot with what Austrian economics actually is. People are like, oh, it's a field of economics, when really it's a set or series of apodictic statements about reality that describe, here's what we know about reality and here's what we can measure. And it's a way of tempering other schools of economics and trying to glean out what is valuable and what maybe isn't as controlled for. So I think that's a very interesting overlap.
I'd also agree, and I'd say what makes this channel different is that there are no commercials to stop the flow. And while later there might be commercials added in on the podcast or something like that, as we're talking here, we can talk for the full half hour, the full hour, or 2 or 3 hours if we want to. It's not shaped and structured into 5-minute bit, 3-minute bit, 5-minute bit like you see on TV. It's more like what I think Joe Rogan or Howard Stern's doing, where they do these incredibly long interviews and they really get their guests to relax because they're not having this 30-minute break every 30 minutes where the agent could come in, the manager could come in. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about. Hold on to that. Don't mention this. Oh, you went a little too far here. There's no coaching here. I mean, nobody here has an agent or a manager to talk to anyway. But you get what I'm saying. I think that those formats, and especially what Joe Rogan's doing, similar to what Howard Stern has done in the past, although he's on Sirius Radio, so it's a little harder to get to. But that long form internet, the long form interview, that's what we're seeing on the internet now. I think it's really exciting.
It's good for attention spans too. It really is.
You can do it in a audio podcast. You can do other stuff with your hands. You can do work and things. It's not fully encompassing. So, but let's move on to the exit question or prediction. We're doing great on time today. Blake Anderson, are you ready with an exit question or prediction?
Yeah, I want to dedicate every second that I can get for you guys listening to me to try to talk about Ross Ulbricht and the fact that we need to free him and we need to get him out of prison. The absolute disgrace, abortion of justice that was his trial was unacceptable. It is an unacceptable slippery slope for us to allow that to have happened. We don't want to go down that road. I think the judge that found him guilty in the face of all of the bad things that happened in the trial that should have made it a mistrial. She's retiring. We're going to get a new judge, and I believe there are some petitions floating around right now that are getting some traction. I believe Charlie Lee and some other people have retweeted them. If you can go ahead and do me a personal favor and retweet that and sign that petition, I would really, really appreciate it. I don't think I've ever asked you guys for anything while being on this show, but it would really mean a lot to me if you guys would go ahead and research that trial, research what happened, research the fact that the agents that basically set him up are now in prison because they did so many things that were illegal that they're not even free anymore. That alone should be enough for a mistrial. We need to do everything that we can as cypherpunks, as cryptographers, as people involved in this space to make sure that the people that contributed so much early on at least have a chance at freedom. It is not acceptable that Ross has been in prison for 5 years for making a website that government agents went in and did illegal things on and then put him into prison for 2 life sentences. That is absolutely an abortion of justice. It's absolutely terrible. There's a poem that is that first they came for the socialists and I said nothing because I'm not a socialist. And then it goes on to list the trade unionists and everyone else. And by the end of it, it says, I said nothing because I was not a part of any of these groups. And when they finally came to me, when they finally came after me, there was nobody left to speak on my behalf. And I think that we all need to take that to heart and do everything that we possibly can to free Ross. So if you have any questions and want to contact me, I would be more than happy to talk to you about what you can do to help out. And I think that this is something that no matter what camp you're in, that we can all agree that having somebody thrown in jail for 2 life sentences for some IT work is absolutely unacceptable and a very dangerous precedent. And we need to get that overturned.
You're right, Blake. There was many things wrong with that trial, such as when the government kept the site running, but at the same time talked about the extreme harms of running the site. It seems when they captured it, they should have shut it down immediately. Instead, they kept it running to try to capture more people. Additionally, they tried him on murder in the trial, but he was never charged with murder. They used all that evidence from the fake murders that were set up by the same FBI agents that were stealing his money. Hundreds and thousands of dollars of his money. The same people that set him up for the non-real murder.
I have to offer a correction. They actually they said that they were charging him for murder, tainted the jury pool, and then did not formally charge him, which is again another hyper massive literal abortion of justice. We cannot tolerate that.
And that seems like malpractice by the prosecution, that they're attempting to paint the jury as something and then actually trying something else. That doesn't seem. The law is supposed to be straightforward. And when it acts not straightforward, you know something's wrong. Additionally, he was denied his Supreme Court appeal. Some people thought that the recent Carpenter case, which helps you on evidence that incriminates yourself, self-evidence, would have helped him out and would have made the appeal especially interesting for the Supreme Court, but they denied it anyway. So very unfortunate, very fishy there as well, because clearly Ross's own evidence was used against him over and over again. Let's go to Josh Kagala for a prediction or a story of the week, and you can also talk about Ross as well.
Yeah, no, I really want to chime in on that. I also actually at the start of the show was thinking I wanted to bring up that Ross Ulbricht is actually on Twitter now through his mother. So that's Real Ross. What is it? Yeah, at Real Ross U is his Twitter handle, and you can go to freeross.org to find out where that petition is. And you can go to @FreeRoss to retweet because it is really important. I remember reading his articles, reading Dread Pirate Robert's articles, and always being like very impressed with this person's writing. Were amazing. And then when these murder for hire charges came up, I just straight away knew what a load of nonsense. These people are trying to make his giant, massive followers, because he, Dread Pirate Roberts, whether that's Ross or not, had a massive following of really, really dedicated, because his writings were so amazing. They're gobsmacking. They're really, really well written, beautifully written. Better than I can speak. But
it was an unfortunate decision that they chose not to go political in the trial. They had the protesters there, they were ready to go, and then the judge basically threatened Ross's mom, said that he was going to sequester the jury and that the jury would vote against them because they were sequestered, because the protesters were arguing for jury nullification. Jury nullification is something you should know about more. It says if you don't believe in the law, you don't have to vote to convict. So if you don't believe in the drug war and you think it's stupid, and they bring somebody for 2 joints and try to give them 6 years in jail, you can say, no, that's stupid. We nullify this. And if the jury had known that, they might have been able to say about Ross's thing that all he really did was help people trade large amounts of cannabis for large amounts of money with no violence. That's really what the marketplace did.
Yeah, and you know, I really watched everyone turn. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people turn their back on him because of these murder for hire charges, which were then dropped. But I still see that get rolled out on Reddit by random people, like, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for a murder guy," you know, and it's like, dude, you know, it's really, really sad. But yeah, definitely, you know, I don't sign anything on change.org, but when I do, I signed something for Ross Ulbricht.
Very good. Thank you, Josh. JW Weatherman, prediction or a story of the week?
Actually, yeah, I just want to talk about the Ross thing too. He has definitely been screwed over. There's no question about that. But I think the most important thing to understand is that this is not an exception. When I interviewed Tim May a couple months ago, and I wish I had the title of the book. If you hit me up on Twitter, I'll give you the link. He recommended a book that completely blew my mind because it just goes into excruciating detail, and it's excruciating because it's just constantly a red pill chapter after chapter on how the legal system works, and that it is actually perfectly designed for these outcomes, that it's the purpose of the legal system to reallocate property from its proper owners to the improper owners, right? That's a state monopoly legal system. That's the purpose of it. And it's not erroring when it does these things. It is doing exactly what it's designed to do. So I totally agree. We should be outraged. We should definitely, like, I'm going to retweet for Blake, and I'm going to sign the petition. I'm going to continue to donate to Ross and his cause. But I also want to just emphasize that this is why Bitcoin matters. And I think, and I know this might be a little bit controversial, but I think if you buy $10 worth of Bitcoin and hold it, rather than put $10 of effort into politics or even trying to get other people passionate about it, that is going to step Ross towards those gates a lot faster and a lot further than anything else, because we have to defund this war machine. We have to defund this corrupt political system, and we have to defund the corrupt legal system, which is just another branch of this monster that consumes and destroys and is funded through inflating dollars.
And if I could really just weigh in really quickly one more time, I've met Lynn Ulbricht in person. I've spent some time talking with her. It was in 2014, so it was, you know, years and years ago at this point. But she is one of the nicest people ever. And when you meet somebody's parents, you can tell how they were reared, how they were raised, and they were raised with the same values. She did nonviolent parenting. She raised him in a way that he understood markets. He understood the value of cryptography almost before anybody else. The value of that level of decency of an individual being in jail in and of itself alone is absolutely heartbreaking to me. Somebody that has that much value and that much prophetic foresight into where these things are going to go and tries to invent a free market, by the way, which is a cornerstone of both conservative and liberal politics, free markets. That's something that should not be punished in the West. And again, if we let that slippery slope continue from where it already has, that's absolutely heartbreaking from a humanitarian level, from a legal level, and even from a self-interest level. No matter what level you're operating on, I cannot see any good reason for anybody to be apathetic about this situation. It's very, very important.
Well, and when Yahoo and Craigslist and Google had this problem, they used the common carrier defense. They said, whatever you put on our websites, you put it there. Just in that way, Ross Ulbricht set up the Silk Road, and whatever people sold on there, they put it there. This defense worked for Yahoo and Google and Craigslist, but it didn't work for Ross. Josh?
Yeah. I would just also like to say, I've also lucky enough to spend some time with Lynn, and really, you're so right, Blake. What an amazing person, an endless, boundless amount of energy and passion, not only for freedom, not only for Ross, but for freedom in and of itself. We really owe it as a community of someone that when we look at and when we talk about freedom of money and freedom of money, of movement of money, also the ridiculous notion of this drug war. She is a person that's going around the world and promoting freedom through her son's story, and fighting so hard to have some sort of justice for her son. And they're not a rich family, so one thing that you can do, we all shop on Amazon, and if you go to freeross.org, if you click through, if you want to buy something on Amazon, just click through their link. It doesn't cost you anything more, and they earn a little bit of commission to help Free Ross. So I think that's also a really good thing to do.
I want to just go ahead and chime in and say that, yeah, I've also met Ross Ulbricht's mother. It was probably 4 years ago when Blake met her, and she's a very nice lady. Ross was a Boy Scout. This is a big surprise to her. I think of myself or a lot of my other friends. A lot of people get into computer trouble in their youth. A lot of people do things on the internet they shouldn't do. But Ross really got punished for it, consecutive life sentences. It's way out of line for a computer crime. So hopefully we can get something on this petition, or really sadly, I think the only thing that's really going to help him is a presidential pardon. And the populace is very anti-drug war. Marijuana is being legalized all over the place, but we're still not there for a president to pardon someone like Ross yet.
Also, it almost reminds me of the Philip K. Dick quote, in memoriam, for my friends that were punished far too harshly for the things that they did.
Yep, from Scanner Darkly. And he talks about, his friends and both the drugs and the system punished those people. It was both.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I read a really great article once, and I wish I could find it again. I've tried to find it, but it talked about a researcher talked about how much violence is generally across the board in the drug industry, because in the illegal drug industry, because you do not have an arbitration system to deal with conflicts. So usually gangs will head towards violence to settle conflict, which is horrific. And the whole time the Silk Road was running, and actually any market running on Tor, the amount of violence is so small, and it's the first time that consumers actually have a voice to say, hey, your stuff is crap. I tested it in a lab and there's like heaps of weird crap cut into it or whatever. And so, when are you going to do that? You're going to stand on this corner telling all the people coming to buy that his stuff's crap? No, you're going to get shot in the head to do that. But, so the market got extremely good and pure, and no violence happened the whole time it was live. In terms of consumer violence, no one was ever killed, and it was running for a few years. So it really is a non-violent case in terms of what he did, and So
that reminds me of when Hunter S. Thompson ran for sheriff of Aspen, Colorado. He decreed that if he was elected, bad drug dealers, ones that ripped you off or had bad product, would be put into stocks on the courthouse lawn and punished. Would have been a great thing. He ran under the Freak Power campaign. I think it was around 72 or something like that. But I think we're going ahead to go to the end of the show here. I just wanted to say tonight in Las Vegas, if you're in the Las Vegas area, join us on Fremont Street near the Heart Attack Grill around 7 p.m. We're going to be handing out some flyers to the people of Las Vegas, really to the tourists, I guess. And we're going to try filming it. Mad Bitcoins will be there. And hopefully we'll have a video for you in the next couple of days after I bring all the footage home and edit it. So you can check that out. As always, if you'd like to donate Bitcoin or any of the altcoins accepted by Trezor, we've got the QR codes right here on the screen. And be sure to check out the rest of the shows on the World Crypto Network. Max has been doing a lot of broadcasts from the Mises Institute. That might not be up your alley, but you should check it out. And then there's other people who just love that and think it's the greatest thing ever. But it's only going to be this week. next week we'll be back to the normal Bitcoin shows and that kind of thing. But it's fun to have a conference on here sometimes, I think. So thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe down below, give us a thumbs up and a share. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.